She said she liked quiet houses. It keeps things honest, she told me that first week, leaning on the kitchen counter while I tried not to stare at the way her hair slipped loose from its knot. I didn't know what to say back then. I just nodded, pretending to study the paint on the wall, and told her the pipes upstairs might rattle for a few days until they settle. That's how it started, with noise she didn't mind, and silence I couldn't break. She was my landlady, technically. But she wasn't the kind of person you thought of in technical terms. Her name was Elise. Mid-40s, maybe, though time had settled on her like it respected her. She moved with that careful grace people have when they've learned not to rush for anyone anymore. The first time I saw her, I remember thinking she looked like someone who'd been both deeply loved and deeply alone. The day the story really began, it was raining, that slow, steady kind that makes the whole house hum. I came downstairs to return a screwdriver, but she was in the living room, barefoot, standing by the window. The sound of rain softened everything, her outline against the glass, the curve of her neck as she turned when she noticed me. "Oh, sorry," I said, holding up the tool like it was proof I wasn't intruding. She smiled faintly. "You don't have to apologize for being in your own house." Still, I did. Out of habit. The conversation could have ended there, but she gestured toward the window. "Listen to that," she said. "It never rains evenly here. It starts heavy, then fades, then finds its rhythm again. Kind of like people." Her words landed in that quiet space between casual and too personal. I stood beside her, not close, not far, watching droplets race down the pane. She exhaled softly, I could hear it more than see it. She smelled faintly of cedar and coffee. There was a small streak of paint on her wrist, a pale line she hadn't noticed. I don't know why I noticed everything about her. Maybe because she carried herself like someone who didn't expect to be looked at that way anymore. "Do you ever get lonely here?" I asked, immediately regretting it. Her eyes flicked to mine, steady, unreadable. "I said I was fine alone," she said after a beat. Then her voice softened. "Why? You think I don't sound convincing?" I shrugged. "You sound like you're trying to believe it." She laughed, but it wasn't a dismissal. It was quiet, low, something that filled the small space between us and made it warmer. Then she turned toward the counter to pour another cup of coffee. "Do you want some?" she asked without looking back. "Sure." When she handed me the mug, her fingers brushed mine, just that. A second too long. Enough to make the air shift. I didn't move. Neither did she. Her thumb grazed the rim before she pulled away, pretending to busy herself with the sugar jar. It was nothing. And somehow, it was everything. For a moment, the rain outside seemed to hesitate, like it was listening too. I could feel the faint pulse of warmth still in my palm where her skin had been. Then, suddenly, a knock at the door. Sharp. Unexpected. She froze, cup halfway to her lips. Her gaze darted toward me, then the door, then back again, something flickering behind her calm expression. I set my coffee down slowly. "Expecting someone?" I asked. Her answer came quiet, but it carried weight. "No," she said. "Not tonight." And the sound of rain grew louder again, like it knew what it had just interrupted. The knock had come from a delivery man, just a wrong address. Still, it left something behind in the room, like the air hadn't settled since. She thanked him, closed the door, and stood there a moment, her hand resting on the frame as if she needed the wood to hold her steady. I stayed quiet, unsure if I should go or wait for her to say something. "Sorry about that," she murmured finally, voice thin but even. "It's nothing." But it wasn't nothing. The way she avoided my eyes told me that. She went back to her chair by the window, curling her fingers around the mug like it could anchor her. I should have left, but instead I found myself sitting across from her, rain still whispering against the glass. "Used to be married," she said after a while, just tossed it into the quiet. 10 years. He liked the house quiet too. Until he didn't. I didn't ask for more. Some things you shouldn't ask. She looked up, smiled faintly, almost apologetically. You get used to people leaving, you know? Then you start keeping the silence for yourself. I nodded, though I couldn't imagine choosing silence over someone like her. She studied me for a moment, eyes narrowing slightly, as if seeing something she wasn't sure she wanted to. What about you? You seem young to already like quiet places. I laughed softly. That's one way to say I don't have much going on. That's not what I meant. Her tone was gentle, almost scolding. I met her gaze and held it longer than I should have. There was something unspoken building between us, not bold, not dramatic, just that slow, steady pull that starts as curiosity and turns into something you try not to name. She shifted in her chair, tucking her legs beneath her, the hem of her sweater slipping just enough to show her bare shoulder. I looked away, too late. She noticed. I could feel it. Her next words came quiet, teasing. You blush easily. I tried to laugh it off. It's just warm in here. Is it? She asked, smiling. The room felt smaller suddenly. I reached for my mug just to have something to do with my hands, but she reached too, brushing my wrist. The touch was light, but deliberate. She didn't pull back right away this time. For a heartbeat, it felt like the world was holding its breath. The rain, the ticking clock, even the shadows, all waiting to see if one of us would move. Then she stood, slow and composed. You should fix that pipe tomorrow, she said, as if we hadn't both just crossed an invisible line. Yeah, I managed. Tomorrow. She turned toward the kitchen, but her hand paused on the doorway. Without looking back, she said, "Good night, Ethan." She'd never used my name before. It shouldn't have meant anything. But somehow, it did. The next morning, everything felt slightly off. Too quiet. Too aware. I heard her moving around upstairs, the soft rhythm of footsteps and cupboard doors. I told myself I'd just fix the pipe, keep it professional, make it quick. But when I knocked, her voice came through, calm, still warm from sleep. Come in, Ethan. It's open. She was kneeling by the sink, hair loose, a smudge of soap on her wrist. The domesticity of it, her in a thin gray shirt, sleeves rolled, water running, made the air between us heavier somehow. Pipe still leaking? I asked, crouching beside her. She nodded. It started again last night. I thought about calling someone else, but she stopped, biting her lip lightly, as if she realized what she'd just implied. I don't mind, I said quickly. We worked in silence, side by side. The space was tight, her arm brushed mine every few seconds. Each time, it felt more deliberate, or maybe that was just me reading too much into everything. At one point, she shifted closer to hand me a wrench. Her breath brushed my cheek when she spoke, low and steady. You always work this carefully? Only when someone's watching. That made her laugh, short, soft, but it stayed in the air. When I looked up, her eyes were already on me, and for the first time, neither of us looked away. I could have said something then. She could have too. Instead, we just stayed there. Too close, too quiet. The faucet dripped once. Twice. Then, a sharp chime, her phone on the counter. She startled, bumping the sink. I caught her arm before she hit the edge. Her hand came up, almost instinctively, resting on my chest for balance. For a second, maybe longer, we didn't move. Her fingers curled slightly against my shirt. My hand still held her wrist. I could feel her pulse there, quick and real. Then she stepped back, slow, like waking from something. She turned off the tap, reached for the phone. I heard a man's voice faintly through the speaker. Who was that? I asked before I could stop myself. She glanced at me, unreadable. Just someone who doesn't call anymore. The lie was too careful to be anything else. The moment fractured, but it didn't fade. We cleaned up, said nothing. When I started to leave, she followed me to the door, her hand brushing my shoulder as she passed, just enough to make me stop. "I shouldn't have," she began. "Me neither," I said. But neither of us finished the sentence. We stood there, inches apart, the morning light cutting through the half-open blinds. Outside, a car passed. Inside, the silence grew taut enough to break. She looked up at me then, not defiant, not apologetic, just barely breathing. "Ethan," she whispered, voice trembling like a confession she couldn't make. And before either of us moved, before we decided which way this would go, someone knocked again. The knock this time wasn't from a stranger. It was her friend, a woman in her 50s, chatty, holding a casserole dish and a smile too wide for the tension it walked in on. "Elise. I thought I'd drop by." "Oh, sorry, am I interrupting?" Elise's tone snapped back to polite. "No, of course not. Ethan was just fixing the pipe." I stepped back, wiping my hands on a rag, trying to look casual. The friend's eyes flicked between us, a second too long, and I knew she'd noticed something. She stayed only 10 minutes, but it felt like hours. When the door finally shut behind her, the house seemed to exhale. Elise leaned against the counter, arms folded. "She'll ask questions later." "Let her," I said before I could stop myself. Her gaze snapped to mine, a warning, or maybe a plea. "You don't understand. People love to fill silence with stories. I don't care what they say." "Well, I do." Her voice cracked slightly on the last word. She turned away, gripping the edge of the counter. For a moment, I saw the tremor in her shoulders, the cost of being seen when she'd built her life around not being. I crossed the kitchen slowly, stopping just behind her. "Elise," I said, barely above a whisper. "Tell me to stop." She didn't. Her breath hitched. My hand hovered near her back, then rested lightly against it, just enough to feel her tense, then soften. "I can't," she murmured. But her body leaned back, almost imperceptibly, into mine. The air grew heavy, thick with everything we hadn't said. Her hair brushed my jaw when she turned her head slightly, and for a moment, we were breathing the same slow rhythm. She whispered, "You're too young to know what this costs." "Maybe," I said. "But I know what it's worth." She laughed once, a small, broken sound. "You shouldn't say things like that." "Then stop me." Her hand found mine, fingers trembling, holding it there against her side. She turned then, fully, facing me. Her eyes were bright, conflicted, the kind of look that could start or end a life. "Do you even know what you're doing?" she asked. "No," I said honestly. "But I know how it feels." The rain started again outside, faint but steady, like before. The sound wrapped around us, sealing the room off from the rest of the world. She reached up, slow, uncertain, and brushed a strand of hair from my forehead. Her thumb lingered just long enough for me to forget to breathe. "Elise," I said softly. She swallowed hard, her eyes on my mouth. "This is wrong," she whispered. "Then why does it feel right?" Neither of us moved, not forward, not back, caught in that impossible, fragile distance between wanting and restraint. And then, as her hand slid to my jaw, as the space between us finally disappeared, her phone rang, the ringtone sliced through the moment like a blade. Elise jerked back, fumbling for her phone. Her face changed as she looked at the screen, not fear exactly, but something colder. She turned away before answering. "Hi," she said quietly. "No, I'm fine. Yes, I'm still here." Her tone was careful, distant. She walked toward the window, back to me, one hand pressed against her temple. I couldn't hear the words on the other end, but I didn't need to. When she hung up, she didn't turn around right away. "That was my ex-husband," she said finally. "He still calls when he remembers I exist." I didn't know what to say. "He heard I was renting the downstairs again," she went on. "Asked if it's a man this time." My stomach tightened. "What did you tell him?" "I told him it didn't matter." She turned then, eyes sharp but tired. But it does, doesn't it? To him, to my friends, maybe even to you. I stepped closer. It doesn't. She smiled faintly, but it wasn't amusement. You're young enough to believe that. I shook my head. You keep saying that like it's a weakness. It's not weakness, she said softly. It's innocence. And you'll lose it if you stay near me. I wanted to tell her she was wrong, that the only thing I was losing was my patience trying not to touch her. But I didn't. I just looked at her, and she saw too much in that silence. Her breath caught. Ethan, what are we doing? Trying not to ruin it, I said. She took a slow step forward. And if it's already ruined? Her nearness burned. I could feel the warmth from her skin even before she reached me. She stopped inches away, searching my face like she was looking for something she already knew. Then she whispered, "You weren't supposed to remind me I could still feel this." Her voice cracked on this. The confession broke something open in the air. She reached up, then hesitated. Her fingers trembled in the space between us. I wanted to pull her closer, erase that hesitation, but she stepped back suddenly, as if realizing how close she'd come to falling. "Elise. Don't," she said, shaking her head. "You should go." I didn't move. "Is that what you want?" Her silence was answer enough. It wasn't. But she couldn't say it. I finally turned toward the door. My hand was on the knob when she said it, barely above a whisper. "I looked you up, you know. When you applied to rent." I told myself it was practical. But it wasn't. I froze. Her confession hung between us, fragile and irreversible. She took a breath. "I knew your name before you even knocked on my door." When I looked back, her eyes were wet but steady. "So don't think you're the only one who's been pretending." And with that, the balance we'd been clinging to finally tipped, not broken yet, but past saving. For 2 days, we didn't see each other. No footsteps upstairs. No casual greetings. Just the quiet weight of everything we hadn't said sitting heavy in the walls. On the third night, the rain came back. Same slow rhythm, same low hum that once felt comforting. This time it sounded like a question I couldn't avoid. I stood at the bottom of the stairs for a long time, staring at her closed door. Then I knocked, once. When she opened it, she didn't look surprised. Just tired. Barefoot again, cardigan pulled around her shoulders, eyes shadowed from not sleeping much. "Ethan," she said softly. "You shouldn't be here." "Maybe not," I said. "But you knew I'd come." She hesitated, then stepped aside. "Come in." The living room smelled faintly of paint and tea. A single lamp burned low, throwing soft gold light across her face. She folded her arms, but it looked more like she was holding herself together. "I shouldn't have told you what I did," she said. "It wasn't fair." "Neither was pretending," I said. Her eyes met mine, tired, guarded, but something inside them flickered. "Do you even know what you want from me?" "Yes," I said quietly. "And that's the problem." She laughed once, under her breath, like she didn't trust it. "You think this is something you can just choose?" "I already did," I said. That stopped her. She looked at me a long time, her hand rising unconsciously to her throat. "You'll regret it," she whispered. "Maybe. But not tonight." She closed her eyes, one long, trembling breath, and when she opened them again, something had changed. The resistance was still there, but softer now, thinned by the truth we'd both been dodging. I stepped closer. She didn't move. The space between us vanished 1 inch at a time, the faint brush of her sleeve against my arm, the warmth of her breath near my chin, the sharp, fragile silence between heartbeats. Her voice broke the quiet first. "Ethan, if I let you." "You already did," I said. Her eyes fluttered shut, and she leaned forward, not quite touching, just close enough for me to feel the tremor in her breath. My hand found hers, cold and trembling. She didn't pull away. For a moment, the world narrowed to the rhythm of our breathing. No rain, no past, no rules, just the gravity pulling us closer. Then, just as her forehead brushed mine, she whispered, "Promise me something. Anything. Don't make me feel young again unless you mean it." I swallowed hard, my thumb tracing the back of her hand. I never meant anything more. That broke whatever was left of the distance. Her hand slid up my chest, her breath against my ear. For a heartbeat, the silence between us became its own kind of answer, not pure, not perfect, but real. When she finally spoke again, her voice was steady. "Then don't stop." And for the first time, neither of us did. The rain stopped sometime before dawn. When I opened my eyes, the room was wrapped in that pale gray light that makes everything look softer than it is. Elise was beside me on the couch, her head resting against my shoulder, a blanket half tangled around us. Neither of us spoke at first. We just listened, the quiet hum of the fridge, the faint creak of the house settling. Ordinary sounds, suddenly sacred. She stirred a little, shifting to look at me. "You're still here," she murmured. "I didn't think you wanted me to go." Her lips curved faintly. "I didn't," she said, then added, quieter, "but I thought you would." "I almost did," I admitted. Then I realized I'd regret that more than anything else. She smiled, eyes half closed, tracing a fingertip along the seam of my shirt as if memorizing it. "You know this isn't simple," she said. "I know," I said. "But I don't need simple." Her laugh was small, almost disbelieving. "You make it sound easy." "It's not. It's just, real." She looked at me for a long moment, and I saw it, the fear, the hope, the ache she'd tried to hide for so long. Then she leaned in, pressing her forehead against mine, her breath warm and steady. "I don't know where this goes," she whispered. "Then let's find out," I said. For a while, we just stayed like that, no grand declarations, no promises too big for the morning. Just closeness. The kind that didn't need to prove anything. Outside, the world was waking, car tires on wet pavement, birds testing the air. She pulled back slightly, brushing her fingers through my hair. "You should probably fix that pipe today," she teased. I smiled. "You could help." "Oh, I'll supervise," she said, laughter soft in her throat. We both knew it wasn't about the pipe. It was about the small, ordinary things that would come next: breakfast, repairs, quiet afternoons. Things that didn't erase the age between us but made it irrelevant. As she stood, she reached for my hand. Not hesitantly this time, but with quiet certainty. Her fingers threaded through mine, warm and steady. "Ethan," she said, turning back, "for what it's worth, you make the quiet a little easier to live with." I squeezed her hand. "And you make it harder to leave." She laughed softly, shaking her head. "That's not fair." "Neither was pretending," I said. For the first time since I'd met her, she didn't look away. The light through the window caught in her hair as she smiled, not the careful one she gave the world, but the one that felt like it was only for me. And just like that, the silence between us wasn't something to fill anymore. It was something we shared. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?